the Abba for all that he's yet going to do. Bring it closer. We appreciate him for all that he's doing and all that he's done as we are here to commemorate and celebrate our time of rest. And in our time of resting, we also want to feast upon the instructions of the Abba for our lives. We bring greetings to you from the messengers of Yahuwah's Kingdom of Bread Belief congregation located in South Carolina. We just appreciate what the Abba is going to say to us during this time of rest. Once again, for those of you that may be tuning in for the first time, I want to say shalom to you and Todah for tuning in and being with us on this great Yom. We're going to always do before we go forward into our classes. Repeat with me. Eternity.
For all eternity.
Baruch atah.
Baruch atah.
Yahuwah.
Yahuwah.
Our supreme one.
Our supreme
King
one.
of the universe.
King of the universe.
Who selected us from all the peoples.
Who selected us from all the people.
And gave us his Torah.
The Torah, and it is so.
Baruch atah.
Baruch atah.
Yahuwah.
Yahuwah.
Our supreme one.
Our supreme one.
King of the universe.
King of the universe.
Who gave us the Torah of truth.
Who gave us the Torah of truth.
And implanted eternal life within us.
And implanted eternal life within us. Baruch atah.
Yahuwah.
Yahuwah. Giver of the Torah.
And it is so.
And it is so.
And it is so.
And it is so.
Now at this time we're going to have the reading of the 10 Commandments done by Mattathias, Yasharal, and it is so.
And it is so.
Deputy 5, 6 through 22. Aleph, I am Yahuwah who brought you out of the land of Mitzrayim from the bed of slavery. Bet, you shall have no other power before me. You shall not make any graven image or any likeness of anything that is in Shemayim above, or that is in the earth beneath, or that is in the mind beneath the earth. You shall not bow down yourself unto them nor serve them, for I, Yahuwah, your power, with jealous power, visiting the iniquity of the idols upon the children unto the third and fourth generation of them that hate me, and showing mercy unto thousands of them that abhor me and keep my commandments. Gemel, you shall not take the name of Yahuwah your power and falsify it, for Yahuwah will not hold him guiltless that takes his name and injures it. Dalet, guard the Sabbath day to set it apart as Yahuwah your power has commanded you. 6 days you shall labor and do all your work. But the seventh day is the Sabbath of Yahuwah your power. In it you shall not do any work, you, nor your son, nor your daughter, nor your manservant, nor your maidservant, nor your ox, nor your ass, nor any of your cattle, nor your foreigner that is within your gate, that your manservant and your maidservant may rest as well as you. And remember that you were a servant in the land of Mitzrayim, and that Yahuwah your power brought you out of there through a power, commanded you to keep the Sabbath. Hey, esteem your Ab and your Im as Yahuwah your power has commanded you, that your days may be prolonged and that it may go well with you, and shall not murder. Zain, neither shall you commit adultery. Ket, neither shall you steal. Tet, neither shall you bear false witness against your neighbor. You, neither shall you desire your neighbor's Isha, neither shall you covet your neighbor's bait, his field, or his manservant, or his maidservant, his ox, or his ass, or anything that is your neighbor's. These words Yahuwah spoke unto all your assembly in the mount, out of the midst of the fire, of the cloud, and of the thick darkness with a great voice. And he added no more. And he wrote them in 2 tables of stone and delivered them unto me. And it is so.
And it is so. Chapter 6 of Devarim, verses 1 through 18. And it reads, These are the commandments, the statutes, and the judgments which Yahuwah your power commanded to teach you, that you might do them in the land where you are going to enter and possess it, that you might fear Yahuwah your power, to keep all his statutes and his commandments, which I command you, you and your son and your grandson, all the yamim of your life, and that your yamim may be prolonged. Hear therefore, O Yasharal, and observe to do it, that it may be well with you, and that you may increase mightily as Yahuwah power of your Abbas has promised you in the land that flows with milk and honey. Shema, Yasharal. Yahuwah our power, Yahuwah our supreme one, Yahuwah is Akkad. And you shall ahab Yahuwah your supreme one with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your might. And these words which I command you this yom shall be in your heart, and you shall teach them diligently unto your children, and shall talk of them when you sit, and shall talk of them when you sit in your bed, and when you walk by the way, and when you lie down, and when you rise up. And you shall bind them for a sign upon your hand, and they shall be as frontlets between. And you shall write them upon the posts of your bed and on your gates. And it shall be when Yahuwah your power shall have brought you into the land which he swore unto your fathers, to Abraham, to Isaac, and to Yaakov, to give you great cities which you did not build, houses full of all great things which you filled not, wells dug that you where, lest you forget Yahuwah which brought you forth out of the land of Mitzrayim, from the bed of slavery. You shall fear Yahuwah your power and serve him, and shall swear by his name. You shall not go after the power of the people which are round about you. For Yahuwah your power is a jealous power among you, lest the anger of Yahuwah your power be kindled against you, and he destroy you off the face of the earth. You shall not tempt Yahuwah your power as you tempted him in Massah. You shall diligently keep the commandments of Yahuwah your power, and his testimonies and his statutes, which he has commanded you. And you shall do that which is right in the sight of Yahuwah, that it may be well with you, and that you may go in and possess the great land which Yahuwah swore unto your fathers. And it is so.
And it is so.
And it is so. Let us have another song, please.
Your hands, works of your hands.
Mighty are the 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 works of your hands.
Strong and mighty, strong and mighty.
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 Mighty are the works of your hands.
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 Strong and mighty, strong and mighty.
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 Powerful are the works of your hands.
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 Strong and mighty, strong and mighty.
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 Great are the works of your hands.
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 Strong and mighty, strong and mighty.
Strong and mighty.
Are the works of your hands.
Strong
Strong are the works of your hands.
Strong are the works of your hands.
Strong and mighty, strong and mighty.
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 Awesome are the works of your hands.
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 Strong and mighty, strong and mighty.
Strong and mighty, strong and mighty.
Strong and mighty,
Strong
strong and mighty.
and mighty, strong and mighty.
Mighty are the works of your hands.
Mighty are the works of your hands.
Mighty are the works of your hands.
Mighty are
commemorate a time of rest, a time that we cease from all our labors, a time that we gather together to learn from the mouth of Abba Yahuwah through his son Yahushua Mashiach and the Ruach HaKodesh. At this time, we're going to turn our attention to the son of Yahush. And we're going to begin at chapter 1, and we're going to read chapter 1, beginning at verse 6. We're going to read 6 and 7, and then we're going to recite verse 8. Very familiar passage of writings. I hobbit because it keeps me personally grounded. Remember, use wisdom in everything that I do because I want to prosper. Prosperity is not always in the form of monetary baruching, but it is also in the form of wisdom, stamina, stability, and just being able to function. You know, wisdom is the ability to use the knowledge that you've received. And so when we're able to use the knowledge that we have received and apply it to our lives, it helps us to be better people. People shall you divide for an inheritance the land which I swore to your Abbas to give them. Verse 7, please, everyone have your writings. Jalen, make sure you have yours too to follow along. Verse 7, excuse me, only be you strong and very courageous, that you may observe to do according to all the Torah which Moshe my servant commanded you. Turn not from it to the right hand or to the left, that you may prosper wherever you go. Verse 8, as I've tailored it to fit our time of confession, let us repeat this. I will not let this scroll of the Torah.
I will not let the scroll of the Torah
depart out of my mouth.
depart out of my mouth.
But I shall meditate therein.
But I shall meditate therein.
Yom and Layla.
Yom and Layla.
That I may observe to do.
That I may observe to do.
According to all that is written in it.
According to all that is written in it.
For then I shall make my way prosperous.
And then I shall make my way prosperous.
And then I shall act wisely.
And then I shall act wisely.
Now look at your neighbor and tell your neighbor, you shall act wisely.
And you shall act wisely.
Look at your other neighbor, tell your other neighbor, you shall act wisely.
And you shall act wisely.
Take your hand and place it over your heart and say, Abba Yahuwah,
Abba Yahuwah,
I shall act
wisely.
wisely. I am determined
I am determined
to act wisely.
to act wisely.
Come on, I am determined
I am determined
to act wisely.
to act wisely.
And it is so.
And it is so.
And it is so. Very important for us to understand. This is a very, very powerful, because it talks about the children of Yasharal under a leader that was willing to take them and do and walk in obedience to the commands of Abba Yahuwah. One thing is important is obedience is key. When we don't walk in compliance and walk in obedience, we can't flourish and we can't function. And that's one of the things that the enemy is really trying to do with our people, is keep us in a position to where we're always second guessing and always questioning instead of following instructions.
Right.
It's the truth, whether we want to accept it or not. Many of us don't like to follow instructions. It's a new ball game for us, especially when you walk for so long by yourself and without any kind of discipline and structure over your life. Many times when we say discipline, people think, well, they just wild and out always. You can be doing stuff, but because you do it does not mean you are disciplined. And so it's important that we understand this is what the instructions come to do, to help define and discipline our lives, to cause us to conform to his instructions and walk in them. Anytime there is a struggle with walking in obedience or walking into instructions, that means you have a problem with authority.
That's right.
People don't like to admit it, but it's the truth. You have a problem with authority. And so when you have a problem with authority, not only do you have a problem with natural authority, but you also have a problem with the Abba's authority. How so? Because you have to understand, the Abba is the one who gives the authority. Anybody else walking outside of that, you're just doing your own thing. But it's important that we honestly question motives for why we don't do what we do when we're told to do it. And it is so.
And it is so.
And it is so. This, but Yahush is a great scroll or great writings that talks about it, because Yahush had to discipline himself to bring a people that was already prophesied about that they weren't going to be obedient. It just was not in that generation's nature to be obedient, in spite of the Abba giving them what they needed to walk in obedience. So let us not be that truly walking and guarding the instructions over our lives so that we can comply and walk in obedience to his instructions for our lives. And it is so.
And it is so.
Let us have another song, please.
The Comforter has come. Tell him that the victory's been won. What great joy to my soul. I can tell the world about this. I can tell the nations I'm in the room. Tell them that the Comforter has come. Tell them that the victory's been won. She brought joy, great joy to my soul. I can tell the world about this. I can tell the nations I'm in the room. Tell them that the Comforter has come. Tell them that the victory's been won. She brought joy, great joy to my soul. I can tell the world about this. I can tell the nations I'm in the room. Tell them that the Comforter has come. Tell them that the world joy to my soul. Come, tell them that the victory's been won. Yeah, she brought joy, great joy. has come. Tell them that the victory's been won. She brought joy, great joy to my soul. I can tell the world about this. I can tell the nations of it. Tell them that the Comforter has come. Tell them that the victory's been won. She brought joy, great joy to my soul. I can tell the world about this. I can tell the nations of it. Tell them that the Comforter has come. Tell them that the victory's been won. She brought joy, great joy to my soul.
Out of darkness, so that we might truly walk in the marvelous light, the light of his Torah, which is Yahushua our Mashiach. We just appreciate him for all that he's doing, all that he's done, and all that he's yet going to do in and through our lives. It is just a great time, an exciting time. We know the signs of the times. We know that trouble is not on the horizon, but trouble is now. But even in this, we find our confidence and we find our comfort in knowing that the Abba is going to take care of those that are his.
Right.
For he knows those that are his, according to the writings. And because we know we belong to him, not just because of our attire, but because of our heart. Because you can wear and look Hebrew all day long, but unless your heart has been converted, unless your heart has been renewed and redeemed, you're just wearing a tire, and you're still the same old person. There's a saying: you can take a pig out of its pen, but you can't take the nature of a pig. You put it on a plate. It's nasty, but you put it on a plate. It's still a pig. It's still an abomination. They can do whatever they want. They can put all the kind of seasonings and everything they want to do and try to make it edible, but it is still an abomination according to Wayikor chapter 11. It is abomination and it's not to be eaten. Excuse me. So the important thing of our lives is to not just look the part, but truly walk in it. Walk in the life that he has given unto us as his people. We appreciate him once again for what he's doing, what he's done, and what he's yet going to do in our lives. To heal him, Mishpah, 15 and 8. Sacrifices of the wicked is an abomination, hateful and exceedingly offensive unto you, Abba Yahuwah, but the prayer of the upright, it is your delight. Romaiah 14, 17, and 18. For the kingdom of Yahuwah is not meat and drink, but uprightness and shalom and joy in the Ruach HaKodesh. In these things serve Yahuwah to Yahuwah. And the poor hath made me, and the breath of the Almighty hath given me life. Somebody say he's a life giver.
He's a life giver.
Say it again, he is a life giver.
He is a life giver.
Micah 3 and 8. But truly I am full of power by the Ruach HaKodesh of Yahuwah and of judgment. The eyes of Yahuwah are delivered them out of all their troubles. To him, both in Jerusalem and all Judea, and in Shamar, and unto the uttermost part of the earth. To heal him one and one. Baruch is the man that walketh not in the counsel of the unrighteous, nor standeth in the way of sinners, nor sitteth in the seat of the scornful, but his delight is in the instructions of the Abba, and he doth meditate upon it, and it is so.
And it is so.
Ibram 11 and 6. Without belief, it is impossible to please him. Somebody say without belief.
Without belief.
It is impossible to please him. He that cometh to Yahuwah must believe that he is, and that he is a rewarder of them that diligently seek him. And it is so.
And it is so.
And it is so.
And it is so.
Now we turn our attention to Yehukanan, Aleph, chapter 5, verses 1 through 15. Very important, very, very important. I know we don't forget, but it is a reminder to us to hold fast, because there are many that are giving up, throwing in the towel, saying that the Mashiach isn't real. And they are saying that, if you walk according to the renewed covenant, that you are an infidel, that you are a devil and seed, and all of these things. And it's important that we keep the writings before us and that we rehearse them, not just during class and in our ears, but that we keep it hot upon our hearts. Why? Because the enemy is like or going as a roaring lion, seeking whom he may devour. You have to understand, in order for a person to be devoured, they first have to be deceived. Because you're not going to just intentionally, I would pray you wouldn't put yourself in harm's way. Many times people get on this path because of deception, because something they've heard, something they've seen. And if you're not careful, the enemy knows right when to speak to your heart and mind. He waits till you're vulnerable. He doesn't ever come and attack you when you are really strong. He'll put stuff out there. He's not going to basically attack you by himself. But watch this, he will send out imps, and he will allow the other little things to come around and begin to chip at your strength, begin to chip away at your belief, and then he'll come in. You ever see in movies where you see the person excuse me, fighting everybody, and then the big boss come in? So thinking, why would you wait? Because they want to wear down that person so the fight is not long and it's not as hard. So you send out all your best, things. He sends out everything against you, and you fight and you fight. And then when he thinks you're at that point of giving up, and he thinks you're at that point where you're too weak to fight, that's when he starts thinking one punch and it'll do it. One hit, one hit quitter, one hit winner, one hit a quitter. And so when it's all said and done, you hit that one time and it's done. And so that's what he comes in to do, is make that final blow after you fought all these fights, these battles. But one thing is for sure, as long as you keep yourself built up in belief and knowing that these small are going to eventually take you to the big war. You have to understand, building up our belief times in our lives, and things come upon us, we're not so eager and so easily to follow after that. What at times, depending on how it appeals to you, will sound right. That's why it's so important that we ground ourselves in truth. When you ground yourself in truth, it is just like taking a pole and putting it in cement, and you are putting it in there. Why? Because you're going to make sure that it's going to be permanently in there. The only way you'll be able to get it out is that they drill it out to break up all that asphalt, break up that concrete in order to get to that which has been set in it. That's how we have to be set in the Torah. We have to be set in it, and our lives we have to be willing to give up our lives for the defense. Now, understand, that doesn't mean I'm going to defend it because it's in my life. I'm going to guard it according to the writings, according to how the writings tell us. Right. Guard it. So it is important that we understand, as we read Yehukanan Aleph, chapter 5, verses 1 through 15, that we understand the importance of why Yehukanan put this out. Why did he say what he was saying? Well, you have to understand the same thing that we encounter today or to Yom, he encountered it then. He encountered not just a few people. He encountered cities. He encountered groups and mobs of people that were basically trying to denounce and basically trying to sway those that were believing in the Mashiach to stop believing in him. So this was the Gnostic style of teaching. So in order for us to combat that teaching, we got to have some ammunition. And what is that ammunition? The proof and the witness. And the greatest witness we could ever have is the witness of Abba Yahuwah, because he testifies of him being his son in this very chapter. So we're going to read this, as I always read it, as a platform as we prepare to go into part 2 of our class. We have part 1 and part 2. Part 1 is where we praise and worship and we prepare ourselves. This is like if you go to a restaurant and they set out the appetizers. Thank you. You get your appetizers and you get ready for the bigger meal after you get your appetizers and you get your wine or your seltzer water or what have you. And so after you get that, then they say, are you ready to order your meal? And yes, I'm ready to eat now. Why? Because you didn't about ate all these little small snacks. So this is our snack time. Our nugget time, and then it prepares us for the full course. All right, beginning at verse 1. Everyone who believes that Yahush is the Mashiach has been born of Yahuwah, and everyone who ahabs the one bringing forth also Yahab Yahuwah and guard his commands. For this is the Ahab for Yahuwah, that we guard his commands, and his commands are what? Not difficult. Because everyone having been begotten of Yahuwah overcomes the world. And this is the overcoming that has the world, our belief. Our belief in who? In Yahushua. Who is the one who overcomes the world but he who believes that Yahushua is the son of Yahuwah? That's a question. This is the one that came by water and blood. Yahushua Mashiach, not only by water, but by water and blood. And it is the Ruach who bears witness, because the Ruach is the what? Truth. Because there are three who bear witness, the Ruach and the water and the blood, and the three are in agreement. They are in agreement. Why? Because Yahuwah set forth the agreement.
Right.
If we receive the witness of men, the witness of Yahuwah is what? Greater. Because this is the witness of Yahuwah, which he has witnessed concerning his son. Excuse me. The one who has given concerning his son. And this is the witness that Yahuwah has given us eternal life. And this life is in his son. Who is his son? Yahushua. He who possesses the son possesses life. He who does not possess the son of Yahuwah does not possess life. I have written this to you who believe in life, and so that you believe in the name of the son of Yahuwah, which is what? Yahushua. And this is the boldness that we have in him, that if we ask whatever according to his desire, he hears us. And if we know that he hears us, whatever we ask, we know that we have the petitions that we have asked of him. And it is so.
And it is so.
And it is so. Very important for us to understand that whatever we have asked of him, according to his desire, meaning according to his instructions, then he hears us, and he is going to grant us the petition that we ask of him. That is important for us to understand. And it is so.
It is so.
All right, we're going to do our affirmations, then declaration, and then we're going to have our song, our closing out song for part one. Excuse me. Repeat with me. I purpose to develop my Ruach.
I purpose to develop my Ruach.
I purpose to walk in the light of Torah.
I purpose to walk in the light of Torah.
I am Ibram.
I am Ibram.
I am born again.
I am born again.
I am Ibram.
I am Ibram.
I have the life and nature
I have the life and nature
of Yahuwah in my Ruach.
of Yahuwah in my Ruach.
Is the Torah
Torah
of Yahshua.
of Yahshua.
I purpose to walk in the Torah,
I purpose to walk in the Torah,
the Torah of life.
the Torah of life.
Yahuwah's Torah,
Yahuwah's Torah,
Yahush,
Yahush,
is in me.
is in me.
Yahuwah's knowledge
Yahuwah's knowledge
is in me.
is in me.
Yahuwah's ahab
Yahuwah's ahab
is in me.
is in me.
Yahuwah's power
Yahuwah's power
is in me.
is in me.
Yahuwah's wisdom
Yahuwah's wisdom
is in me.
is in me.
He is teaching me.
He is teaching
He is leading me.
He is leading.
I am a child of Yahuwah.
I am a child of Yahuwah.
The Ruach,
The Ruach
HaKodesh,
HaKodesh
of Yahuwah in me
of Yahuwah in me
is leading me.
is leading.
I'll follow her leading. I'll walk in the Torah.
I walk in the Torah.
Yahush,
Yahush,
al-Mashiach.
al-Mashiach.
And it is so.
And it is so.
Now our declaration. Abba Yahuwah,
Abba Yahuwah,
in the name of Yahush,
in the name of Yahush,
al-Mashiach,
al-Mashiach,
we subdue ignorance
we subdue ignorance
with Torah knowledge.
with Torah knowledge.
And through this knowledge
And through this knowledge
of Torah truth,
of truth,
we claim healing,
we claim healing,
shalom,
Shalom,
deliverance,
deliverance,
and salvation.
and Yahshua.
We unite,
We unite,
not to fight,
not to fight.
not to fight.
Not-
And it is so.
And it is so.
Let's have a song.
Let everything that has breath praise Yahuwah. Let everything that has breath, that has breath, praise Yahuwah. Yeah.
Let everything that hath breath praise ye, Abba Yahuwah. We praise him because he's worthy. We praise him because he's great. We praise him because of him bringing us out of darkness into his marvelous light. We praise because, just because he is, we praise him. We praise him. Every Yom should be a special, and because we too at one time were a people that were not a people. We at one time were without his covering. We were at one time without his instructions. But because he harms us, he's given us instruction to bow before our king, and we're going to recite Tehillim 19 and 14. And it's so. Repeat with me. May the utterance of my mouth,
May the utterance of my mouth
and the deliberation of my heart,
and the deliberation of my heart
be desirable before you.
be desirable before you,
O Yahuwah,
O Yahuwah,
my rock,
my rock
and my redeemer.
and my redeemer.
May the utterance of my mouth
May the utterance of my mouth
and the deliberation of my heart
and the deliberation of my heart
be desirable before you.
be desirable before you,
O Yahuwah,
O Yahuwah,
my rock,
my rock
and my redeemer.
and my redeemer.
And it is so.
And it is so.
We have just recited Tehillim 19 and 14. And it is so.
And it is so.
You may be seated in his presence. We do give praise to our King. We baruch him for all that he's doing, all that he's done, and all that he's yet going to do with us, through us, for us. And it's just amazing. It's amazing aha for us. He is so amazing. And I just appreciate him for his aha and his kindness and just him being who he is towards us. Come on, let's just praise him once again. Worthy. Abnormal that it's off and it's not supposed to be, that we're not supposed to praise him. But Dawood gives us instructions, and he gives us how to enter into his gates and into his courts, and that we're entering with thanksgiving and to baruch him. And many times people struggle with baruching him because they feel like that's too churchy. But let me tell you something. The church got its roots from us, from the truth.
That's right.
And so it is important that we understand, as the song has given us a command, let everything, because it's in the writings, let everything that hath breath praise ye, Abba Yahuwah. And we're not ashamed to praise him. We're not ashamed to adore him. We're not ashamed to open up our mouths and express to him. We're not ashamed of that. Because of all that he's brought us through and all that he's taking us to, it is important that we understand that it's not about lip service. Because remember, the writings tell us, as he began to get on the children of Yahshua, he said, their lips speak of me, but their hearts are far from me. It is important that we understand it's not just about making a noise, but it's about that noise coinciding with the heartbeat, your heartbeat. Do you really ahab him? I know I do. I know I do, and I'm not ashamed to let people know. I'm not ashamed to let the world know how much I ahab him. I'm not ashamed to let the world know my feelings for him. I'm not ashamed to let the world see my emotions for him. I'm not ashamed to let people hear me talk to him. I'm not ashamed of that. I have no reason to be ashamed of that. Because I know that this life is the right life, and I know this is the truth. There is not but one way, and this is that way. So I'm not ashamed of that. I go in wholeheartedly and sing the praises to our King and to talk to him. And I don't have to go through a formula or some such. It's just about praising him. It's about talking to him. When you build relationship with the Abba, just as I'm talking to you now, as though you were right here with me, that's the way we ought to talk to the Abba, when we have built a real relationship with him. Building relationships with people means you can talk to them like you know them. When you don't know a person, then you don't know which way to entreat them, because you're not sure what you may say something to offend them. You may say something offensive. You may say something that may hurt them when you don't know people. But when you get to know of a person, then you talk to them like you know them. You communicate with them. We talk to each other in normal voices. And when we communicate with the Abba, we should be willing to do so at the same time.
That's right.
Because we know him. We're getting to know of him.
Mm-hmm.
And we want people to know that we know of him and that we know where we're directing and who we're directing our prayers to. So it's important that we understand that. And like I say, I appreciate him. And I do hop him for all that he's doing, all that he's done, and all that he's yet going to do, bringing us through the feast unscathed, bringing us through the feast without, mumbling and complaining, bringing us through the feast without incident or accident, bringing us through the feast and allowing us to be prepared and have great expectation for the feasts that are coming. It's a delight and it's a joy. And so I find no fault in this way of life, and I find no fault in the one that has brought me into this life. And so it is important that we understand how we are to govern ourselves. But it's important to understand who we are to learn how to live our life, this lifestyle through and by. And that is Yahushua HaMashiach. And so on last week, as we covered the feast of Turah, trumpets, and then we went to atonement, and from atonement we went to the Feast of Tabernacles, and now here we are, and we're going to talk from the perspective from the Feast of Sukkot to the month of Aviv, which we know will be coming in the springtime. And so we're going to follow. Why is it important for us to watch his life and see what he did, what he accomplished? Because remember, he was sent forth to the house of Yahshua, prostituting sheep. According to Matthew 5:17-18, he says he didn't come to do away with the instructions. And according to Matthew, I think it is 24:15, and he tells us, he said, prostituting sheep, meaning that the general or geographical location was not lost, but they were lost in Ruach. We still we're trying to settle within ourselves, is this the right way or is it not? Mm-hmm. Because we're not fully persuaded that this is the right way. Again, you have to understand, the best witness and the only best witness and great witness is Yahuwah. Yes, we are to be witnesses according to Acts 1:8, where he says, I will cause you to be witnesses, or when we receive the Ruach HaKodesh, that we will be witnesses. It is important that we understand we ought to be witnesses. But if my witness fail, and Abba Yahuwah forbid, the witness of Abba Yahuwah is always going to be greater, because his witness will never fail. It is never my intention, and I'm not setting a platform up to ever have to come up and say that I failed. But what I am saying to you, don't get so stuck into trusting people to the point that now if they fall, you got to get up and keep on moving. Dawood knew and he Ahab Shaul. But when Shaul fell, Dawood wasn't going to follow him. He Ahabed him. He respected him. He wasn't going to fall because of him. So you got to understand something. This life is important to us. How we receive it, how we walk it out is important. We can't be Hebrews only on the Sabbath and then throughout the week we live a raggedy life.
Right.
That can't be so. We were at the store on yesterday, and I noticed some European ladies, a daughter and her mother were by us, and we were looking at the bread and stuff, and everything basically you buy is so contaminated. It really is, but that's a whole nother subject. But we're looking at it, and I noticed, because you can tell when people are talking about you because they're looking at what you have on. And so we had our seats on. And so they were looking and they were talking and they were trying to talk under their breath. And they were looking at us, and they're looking at us, and then they kind of look down, so engulfed into their, into their grocery list. And I'm like, I already know that you're gawking at our seats. Right. I already know this. So you have to understand, when we go out places and we're doing things, it is important that we represent. People are looking at us, but people are not just looking at us because they're mystified. Many of them are looking at us because they've already been told, those people that wear those things or wear those fringes, beware of those people because those people are crazy. Right. But we've got to overturn that by living and showing ourselves responsible, watch this, and walking in wisdom.
That's right.
As Yahu son of Nun tells us in 1 and 8. Acting and living and walking what? Wisely. So it's important that we understand these things. Anything less than that is now considered sin, because if we're not living according to his instructions, then now we are doing what? Sinning.
Right.
Because a sinner is what? One who does what? Breaks the Torah, his instructions.
Right.
So it's important that we understand that. And we're going to look at the life of Yahush, and we're going to follow from Sukkot to the month of Aviv, also what we call Abib, not with the V, Abib, Nisan, the spring, the time of the spring. Are you hearing me? When the equinox changes, when the sun goes in and causes change, not the moon. And one of the things that we have to unlearn and relearn, that it is according to the sun and not the moon, according to Bereshit 1 and 14. Very important for us to understand that the signs and the time does not change until the sun brings about the change, the greater light, not the lesser light. It's important that we understand that. Very important. Why? Because if we don't believe that, then it'll be just like us standing up there, when we were younger and ignorant. What comes first, the chicken or the egg? You start thinking, really? But let me tell you, some people get caught up in stuff like that because the way it's presented. So you're sitting up there many times, because I even, before going into Christianity and truth, the question was, what came first, the chicken or the egg? And then you start thinking, what came first? Well, the baby can't come first, because the baby has to have a place to incubate and come from. So that means that the adult had to come first, then comes the children, and then come the other children and children. So it's a I don't want to say a misnomer, but the thing of it is just following in the instructions and not following man, but following the instructions of the Abba. Do we now dismiss man? Absolutely not. But following the right ones, whether they are a more or a mora, following them and then watching where they show you in the writings. Right. And of the writings to you, don't be so quick to shut it down because you feel like, well, that's not what I was told. Absolutely wasn't what you were told. There's a lot of things that we were told and we were not told. But learning how to sift through it, this is why we have to spend quality time reading the writings. Because if we don't, we won't hear his voice. We won't know his heartbeat for us. We won't know his voice. You know his voice through his prophets and through his writings. So it's important that we understand that. And I know many times, once again, because we have many people that call themselves warriors, you got many people that go out there and they are loners, but there's nobody in the writings a loner. If Yahuwah called you through Yahush, you are always going to be in the company of someone other than yourself. So that's important to understand, very important to understand. And so we're going to begin in Luke chapter 10, and we're going to read from verses 17 through 24. Are we still broadcasting?
Yes.
Okay. And this is from the feast of Sukkot to the month of Abib. And we're going to look at the disciples report back. First of all, Yahush ministers in the villages and cities. There were 35 pairs of disciples were sent. Then we're going to look at the disciples report back to Yahush. So we're going to look at what is taking place after Sukkot. Did they just go back to their normal lives and just went on with, we don't know. They prepared for the feasts that were coming. They prepared and continued to do what they were awakened to do, and that is to bring an awakening to our people. It's very important that we understand that. Very important that we keep the fires burning. Very important that we do not become weary in well-doing. Very important that we don't become complacent within ourselves and forget the reason why we were awakened.
That's right.
We were awakened to show forth the praise, the wisdom of the Abba. That's important to understand. How do I do that? Testify, witness. That's how you do it. That's how you ought to show forth. And once again, the greatest testimony, the greatest witness we can ever have, and the best and the only best, and that is through Abba Yahuwah testifying of his son Yahush. You can find that in Yehukanan Aleph chapter 5, verses 1 through 15. Does that mean that if we are witnesses, that our witness of who he is in our lives is invalid? Absolutely not. But always rely on the witness of Abba Yahuwah, because the witness of man can always fail. We're seeing it every young. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
I'm not saying you're not supposed to have belief and hope and trust in the person that the Abba has instructed you to learn from. But what I am saying is that if you call their name out, don't just sit up there and generalize it, call them out.
Yeah.
Abba Yahuwah, keep them, because we need them in place to instruct us. But the problem comes in, we got too many instructors and not enough followers. Too many people that's calling themselves to be instructors, and the Abba has not called them to be so.
Mm-hmm.
So it's important that we understand how we are to govern our lives. But we're going to watch the life of Yahushua HaMashiach through this. And it's going to show us the things that we were not seeing. That we did not see. But we're going to see his life, and we're going to see the things that he did, and those that followed him, and even those that walked away from him because they couldn't handle what the commission really was. You have to understand there's a mission and a commission over our lives that everybody's not willing to follow. And if people are not willing to follow it, then it's time to say sayonara, goodbye. Ain't sayonara, sayonara. Say again.
Sayonara.
Sayonara. Yeah, sayonara. Not sayonara. That's the getaway. But say again.
Sayonara.
Sayonara. Sayonara. Goodbye. Good riddance if they're not going to support you and follow in the truth. So,
Yes, sir.
and so, all right, Luke chapter 10, verses 17 through 24. We're going to read 17, 18, 19, 21, 2, 3, 4, 7 verses. I give everybody the opportunity to read one verse.
Yes, sir.
Got it. Just read one verse.
And the 70 returned again with joy, saying, Master, even the demons are subject to us through your name. And do so.
Yes, sir.
Verse 2.
And he said to them, I saw Satan falling out of heaven as lightning.
Verse 19. I have given you to trample on snakes and scorpions, and to overcome all the power of the enemy. Nothing will harm you.
And this one.
However, don't rejoice that the spirits submit to you, but rejoice that your names are written in Shemaiah. And it is so.
And this one. Come on, let's read it. Mhm.
In that hour, Yahush rejoiced in Ruach and said, I thank thee, O Abba, Yahuwah of Shemaiah, that thou hast hid these things from the wise and prudent, and hast revealed them unto babes. Even so, Abba, for For so it seemed great in that sight. And it is so. 22.
Verse 22.
Mhm.
What you said, 23?
22.
All has been delivered to me by my Abba, and no one knows who the Son is except the Abba, and who the Abba is except the Son, and he to whom the Son wishes to reveal him.
Mhm.
And so,
And it is so. Did you? And he turned him to his disciples and said privately, Baruch are the eyes which see the things that you see. For I tell you that many prophets and kings have desired to see those things which you see, and have not seen them, and to hear those things which you hear, and have not heard them. And it is so.
and it is so.
All right, now we're going to go back up and we're going to look at some footnotes, and we'll dig into these verses, and we're going to look at, once again, this is after Sukkot, a time that they lived in booths, and now they continue forward. In verse 17, it says, the 70 returned again with joy, saying, Master, even the demons are subject to us through your name. Yahu said to them, said unto them, I saw Hashatan come down out of Shemayim like lightning when you interfered with his subjects. This is a footnote in that. Verse 19, I gave to you the authority to tread on serpents and scorpions and authority over all the power of the enemy. Nothing shall by any means hurt you. Notwithstanding, do not rejoice in that the spirits are subject to you, but rejoice because your names are written in Shemayim. In that hour, Yahush rejoiced in Ruach and prayed, I thank you for hiding these things from the wise and prudent, but revealing them to babes, for so it seemed right in your sight. O Abba, all things have been given to me by my Abba. Yet no man knows who the Son is but the Abba. And no one really knows the Abba but the Son and those to whom the Son will reveal him. Now y'all hear that, right?
Yes.
So this is not something you just jump up and know. This is something that the Abba does. He has a method. He has a plan. He has a form. And that's why many people going out there saying he's a killer, he's a warrior, he's a this, he's a that. You don't know who he is, why he can't be that answer. But we try to single him out and we try to make him of one substance or make him of one thing. That's error. Much error. Verse 23, Yahush turned to his disciples and said quickly, Baruch are the eyes which see the things that you have seen. Y'all hear that, right?
Yes.
I tell you, many prophets and kings have desired to see the things which you have seen and have not seen them. They desire to. Now, Halal ben Shachar, son of perdition, refers to should play on words. Now, it talks about these different characters because these are the people that are in place. Are you following me?
Yes.
Now, I'm going to read this as well. And also play on words with Shahar and Shakar, one being the gate. Now, understand these people, it is according to history and many of the theologians and historians and those that have done research, this right here is referring to and it is said that Yashaya used this in reference, you know how when you make songs and they did songs, their songs, sometimes the Abba would create songs of taunting or he would create songs of shalom. Remember when Moshe, during their time when Moshe was on the mount and given the last salutation to them and he wrote and the Abba told him to teach them the song. And as he taught them the song, that song was a song to show them what they were getting ready to do. And he told them, he said, you're going to, before you even get in the land, well, you're going to mess up before you even get in there. And so Yashaya is doing in this, and who is making reference to that taunt. Are you hearing me?
Yes.
Now, once again, as a Babylonian king. This Babylonian king was one who had fallen, and the reason he had fallen is because of his and what he thought he was going to do. If we go there, let's go there real quickly and let's see what he said, and let's look at his mindset and how quickly he got thrown down because of his arrogance. All right, let's look at 14 and 12. Yashia, I'm sorry, Isaiah 14 and 12. And it is so. All right, we're going to read that and see, even though the interpreters interpret and say that Yahu said that this is Shaitan, you have to understand he is making reference to this person being like Shaitan. But this is not Shaitan, and I'm going to show you how and why it's not. We're going to look at verses 12 all the way to 17. All right, when you have it said it is so.
It is.
All right. How you have fallen from the Shemayim, Hillel, son of the morning, Hillel ben Shekar. You have been cut down to the ground, you who laid low the Gentiles. For you have said in your heart, let me go up to the Shemayim, let me raise my throne above the stars of power, and let me sit in the mount of meeting on the sides of the north. Let me go up above the heights of the clouds, let me be like the Most High. But you are brought down to the grave, to the side of the pit. Those who see you stare at you and ponder over you, saying, is this the man who made the Arabs tremble, who shook reins? Now remember, Shaitan is not a man. He's a spirit. Who made the world as a wilderness and destroyed its cities, who would not open the house of its prisoners. Now, once again, it's important to understand the reference that is being made here. This reference is being made, it says, one being the gate of Shemayim, Yahus, the Mashiach, and the gate of hell, and the other, the gate of hell, being Shaitan the deceiver. Now, it says, when Shaitan fell from the Shemayim, he was charred or burnt and is now black rather than his princely self. Now, even Altif says that this is talking about Shaitan. But once again, we can look at it being a reference to how Shaitan fell and his fallen estate and what happens to him in the end. Whereas you can look at this also as being Shar, who was also, as we look in here, as being depicted and shown in the Torah, the son of perdition, or your phone,
Yes.
who is also one who inflicted or caused infliction upon Yasharal and other cities. And so this is why Yashayah is making reference to get them and following the instructions of who? Of Abba Yahuwah. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
Is that making sense?
Yes.
All right. May not make sense to many people, but you got to follow it. Now, let's look at the next thing that he says in verse 19. Behold, I give to you power to tread on serpents and scorpions and over all the power of the enemy, and nothing shall by any means hurt you. Now, let's really look at this. You automatically know that because of your size, scorpions and serpents, meaning snakes and scorpions. Scorpions are this big. Serpents, snakes can be this long or whatever. We know that we have the ability to get rid of them. Are you following me?
Yes.
But most of the time when you are reading in scripture and you are seeing references made of animal characteristics, this is talking about a people, not an animal within itself. This is the characteristic of an animal. Scorpions are vicious and they are what? Poisonous. You cannot take and tame a scorpion. You can take and tame a snake. You can take a snake and you believe that you tamed it, domesticated, and made it a friend. But because they are unpredictable and they are predators, are you hearing me?
Yes.
This is the characteristic that has been given to this people. Now listen, this is future prophecy by the Mashiach of the radical Islamist group coming upon the face of the earth, mentioned as serpents and scorpions. The Torah observant believers will not be succumbed by them. Let's look at Revelations 9:3 and Revelations 9:18. Why is it important for us to understand what's going on here? It is important for us to understand so that we don't become caught up in the game that the enemy is playing and not understand the times that we are living in. Yahush followed the feast, and while he was following the feast, he was revealing and he was uncovering and he was setting things in order and he was setting things straight.
Right.
That's important for us to understand. Very important for us to understand. All right, once again, Revelation chapter 9, verses 3, and we're going to also look at the footnote in 9 and 3. Excuse me. All right, and then we're going to look at 9 and 18. You have to say this. All right. Go ahead, come on. Come on, 9 and 3.
And out of the smoke, locusts came down upon the earth, and were given power like that of scorpions of the earth. And it is so.
And it is so. Read that again.
And out of the smoke, locusts came down upon the earth, and were given power like that of scorpions of the earth.
Mm-hmm.
Verse 18.
Yes, do 9 and 18. I'll get to verse 9.
And the third of mankind was killed by the 3 plagues of fire, smoke and sulfur that came out of their mouths. Verse 18. A third of mankind was killed by the 3 plagues of fire, smoke, and sulfur that came out of their mouths. And it is so.
And just go back and read now. Was it 3 and 9?
Chapter 9, verse 3.
Okay, yeah. 9, 3, 9, and 18. All right, I'm just trying to get there.
And out of the smoke, locusts came down upon the earth, and were given power like that of scorpions of the earth. And a third of mankind was killed by the 3 plagues of fire, smoke, and sulfur that came out of their mouths.
Okay. And to them was given power as the scorpions of the earth have, as of the scorpions. Let me go back and get this right. Of the earth that have power. Now let's look at the footnotes here. Locusts resemble the symbol of the Islamic armies that look like locusts and are many in number like a multitude. Remember, once again, when we were in Christianity, we honestly believed that the locusts were going to be literal locusts. We know that in when they were in Mitzrayim, that there were locusts that came and destroyed the crops. So many times we take that to refer or make reference to that what is in Revelations that is not so. This is talking about a people. Now, when we look at scorpions, this is future prophecy by the Mashiach of the radical Islamic empire to come upon the world. The serpents and scorpions are the Arab nation that will advance for a global jihad as it is happening to Yam. Now, let's look at this. Abid, page 197 and 198. The smoke is unquestionably the symbol of war. This is the battle that was to come and is the biggest in history. It is World War III. It will make World War II look like a tiny war. The Islamist, army is 200 million alone, but we are not given the number of the Master's army. Listen at this. When Shaitan is released, then it is war with the saints and the world. Signs are given before this happens. The signs of locusts is the Ibram words Arabah, meaning locust, and the character of the Arabs is that of the locust, that is desert roaming creatures. So the word for Arab is used in this verse and is the Ibram word Arabi for the Arabians. This is a play on words to mean the Arabs. Arabah, on the other hand, is the Ibram word also meaning number 4. So here, the only thing that can correspond to that number is the geographic nature of the beast, such as in Revelations 13 and 2. Let's look at 13 and 2, and then we'll go back to 9 and 18. And let's look at that nature. When you have it, say it is so.
And it is so.
All right, read that for me.
Revelations 13 and 2.
Mm-hmm.
And the beast I saw was like a leopard, and his feet were like the feet of a bear, and his mouth like the mouth of a lion. And the dragon gave him his power and his throne and great authority.
And it is so. All right, we're gonna get in this. Let's look at this. The leopard. What is the leopard representing? Important manuscripts have a plural word for the term names and not the singular name. This is important for us as this correctly describes the 99 names of Allah that are blasphemous to Yahuwah. You can find these 99 names in any Muslim Quran on the back pages. Okay, now let's look at the foot or the feet of the bear. Let's see. Go back. All right, 6. Leopard. What is the leopard? Leopard is, I read 5, which is talking about the names that sit on the crown and the head of the beast. All right, now 6, Grecian, Middle Eastern. We know there's no middle, but we know it's Eastern. All right, ancient Persian Empire. Today that would be Iran, Pakistan, and Afghanistan. Babylon, today Iraq, and other provinces with it. Now let's look at what is this referring to? Mouth of a lion, and his mouth as the lion, and his mouth as the mouth of a lion. And the dragon gave him power and his seat and the great authority. Once again, we got to look at this. This is talking about powers and kingdoms. This is talking about authority. This is talking about people. It's not talking about animals, but it is talking about the people that have character or have characteristics like these what? Animals. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
The first beast and the second beast are both geo-composite of Eastern nations composed of the Grecian, which is the leopard, Persian, bear, and the lion, Babylon. These spread from the east to the rest of the world are all referred to as the Assyrian Empire and have no part with Europe as any part of it. And y'all understand what that means, right? Yeah. That Europe has no part of it. Stop looking at Europeans and stop looking at those that are not no male. Are y'all following me? As being part of this. They are just a distraction. Are y'all following me? And I know a lot of people ain't gonna like it and don't want to hear it, but it is the truth. You cannot put people in a position or strategically put them somewhere that they are not. That's important for us to understand. Very important. Now, it gave him great authority. Now, in order to give somebody authority, you must have what?
Authority.
You must have authority. All right, let's go back to 9 and 18. All right.
Answer.
9 and 18. And it reads, by these 3 was the third part of men killed by the fire and by the smoke and by the brimstone, which issued out of their mouths. Once again, meaning what? War. Meaning war. How else would it says, by these 3 was the third part of men killed. It's talking about war. It may not have WAR in there, but if we follow it, we see this is talking about war. Let's go back to Luke chapter 10. And let's go back and let's look at we're looking at chapter 10, verse 17 through 24. Chapter 10, verse 17. Now listen what he says in verse 19. Now that we understand who this is, he says, behold, I give to you power to tread on serpents and scorpions and over all the power of the enemy, and nothing shall by any means hurt you. In other words, when this attack comes about, we won't have to be worried about this attack because we are in a place of safety. Where is that place of safety? In the God, in the guidance and the protection of Abba Yahuwah. So aggravating my throat. Excuse me, y'all. Come on, praise him, yes. All right. Now, verse 20, notwithstanding that the Ruach are subject to you, but rather rejoice because your names are written in the Shemayim. Excuse me. In that hour, Yahush rejoiced in Ruach and said, I thank you, O Abba, master of the Shemayim and earth, that you have hid these things from the wise. What did he hide from the wise? Let's look at the whole makeup. He hid who the true enemy was. Because you got to remember, these are our what?
Yeah.
These are our cousins. Because the true war is against Yasharal and our cousins. It is two cousins fighting. And have revealed them to little children. Even so, Abba, for so it seemed great in your sight. Now, mind you, this is talking about those, all of those who had gone out. The 70 that had gone out. Excuse me. There were 35 pairs of disciples were sent out. These were the disciples that had gone out. And remember, he had 12 that were close with him. And he sent them out by twos. But watch this, when the report comes back, he is rejoicing because everything is not being revealed to everybody. Now, this is what he says in verse 22. All things are delivered to me of my Abba, and no man knows who the Son is. Also, we can take in reference to scripture, Yehukanan, chapter 5, Yehukanan Aleph, chapter 5. Remember, the witness of Abba Yahuwah is greater than the witness of man. And except Abba Yahuwah reveals Yahush unto us, we still won't know who he is.
That's right.
Let me show you this. Like I said, it's not going to be popular. This is why you have people running around making the Mashiach look like a person that we've seen with red eyes, black face, and everybody saying, take that down because you're still idolizing him.
Right.
Because we made him, saying we because it is us as a people. We've made an icon out of somebody else, and we've taken them and we made the Mashiach look like that, and that's not what he looks like.
Right.
Are you hearing me?
Right.
And nobody knows who the Son is but the Abba, and the Abba is, and who the Abba is. But the Son, and he who the Son will reveal him. So unless you have Yahuwah life, the Abba will never be revealed to you. This is why people constantly vacillating between Lord and God. This is why people can't get a handle on he's Abba Yahuwah. And they can't switch off of that because they say, well, is he our Lord? He's the Abba. He's our sovereign. Are you hearing me? He's our protector. He's our king. He's our keeper. This is who he is to us. And so this is why he's rejoicing, because many of them didn't realize and understand what was upon them.
Right.
Now listen, all things are delivered to me, of my Abba, and no man knows who the Son is. Just going off of something you read.
Right.
And you trying to stick a face, or you're trying to stick a description of him on it, and you're trying to separate him from everything, and you only can identify with him in this, so that's all you can do. And so by trying to identify him with this one characteristic, because you really don't know of him, or he has not been revealed to you, you box him in and say, well, he's a man of war, and if he's a man of war, he's not going to do this. You start thinking, wait a minute now. He recovered us. He rescued us. Why? Because he has an ahab for us. So let's not get it twisted, but let's have the Mashiach in your life. You do not know who the Abba really is, because if not, who's revealing him to you?
That's right.
Without the revealer, you just walking in darkness. And then watch this, and once the revealer reveals him to you, then watch, he sends the comforter to now solidify or put the seal on your life that shows that you know who he really is. Both of them. Important. For I, prophets and kings, have desired to see those things which you see. What did they see? He's telling us They were able to see who he was. They were able to see who the Abba was. Now, once again, it's about choice, whether or not you want to follow it, hold on to it, or let it not hurt them. It's important that we understand. He's not speaking, we can't understand it, but he's speaking to those that have an ear to hear. And or destruction, which leads to death. Why is this important for us to hold on to eldership? Because you have to understand he's showing us how to protect ourselves against the coming wars.
That's right.
While we're looking at something else, the enemy is laughing because he's saying how you can't even understand what's being said in the writings. Why? Because we're so busy looking at other things instead of really looking at saying, okay, Abba Yahuwah, show me. And above all, holding on to Yahush. Because without him, we have nothing. Without him, we know nothing.
That's right.
Without him, we are nothing. It's important for us to understand that. Now, this is where he says unto them once again, Yahush turned to his disciples and said, quickly, Baruch are the eyes which see the things that you have seen. I tell you, many prophets and kings have desired to see the things which you have seen and have not seen them. They have desired to hear the things which you have heard and have not heard them. So he's telling them, you have to understand where you are. It's very important you understand that you have what others wanted but couldn't get. All right, now, a Torah scholar questions Yahush. This is the parable of the Great Samaritan. And let's look once again at Luke chapter 10, verses 25 through 37. We're going to stay right there, so all we have to do is just go down to verse 25, and we're going to read it all the way to verse 37.
And it is
And so,
And behold, a certain excuse me. And behold, a certain expert in the Torah stood up and tested him, saying, Rabbi, what shall I do to inherit eternal life?
read two.
Okay. He said to him, what is written in the Torah? How do you understand it? And it is so.
And he answering said, You shall love Yahuwah your power with all your heart, with all your being, and with all your strength, and with all your mind, and your neighbor as yourself.
verse 28 to 29. You have answered correctly, Yahushua replied. Do this and you will live. But he wanted to justify himself, so he asked Yahush, and who is my neighbor? And it is so.
And it did so. Chapter 10. We just jumped down to verse 25.
How many verses?
Let's do two. And we're looking at verse 30. Verse 30 and 31.
And Yahush answered, saying, A certain man went down from Jerusalem to Jericho, and fell amongst thieves, which stripped him of his raiment, and wounded him, and departed, leaving him half dead. And by chance there came down a certain Kohen that way, and when he saw him, he passed by on the other side. And it is so.
All right, come on. And 2:33.
And likewise, the Levite, when he was at the place, came and looked on him, and passed by on the other side. But a certain Samaritan, as he journeyed to where he was, and when he saw him, he had compassion on him.
Mhm.
And it is
34, 35.
And went to him and nursed his wounds, pouring in oil and wine, and set him on his own animal, and brought him to an inn, and took care of him. And on the next day before he departed, he took out 2 silver coins and gave them to the innkeeper, and said to him, Take care of him, and whatever you spend more, when I return again, I will repay you. And it is so.
And it is so. All right. Verse 36 and 37.
Who then of these three do you think was neighbor to him who fell among the robbers? And he said, He who showed compassion on him. Then Yahush said to him, Go and do likewise.
And it is so. All right, let's look at this because this is one of those and looked at, but we're going to look at the footnote for this. And I've looked at this numerous times, and it behooves us to look at it again and to look at it from the Torah perspective. And not just that, but let's look at it from another view, okay? Once again, behold, a certain expert in the Torah stood up and tested him. Now, this was a Torah scholar or expert who was of the Torah. He said, What shall I do to inherit eternal life? Now, he asked him a question thinking that Yahush didn't know what he was talking about. Excuse me. He said to him, What is written in the Torah? Not in your Torah, in the Torah. You got to remember, the meaning the Torah of Abba Yahuwah, and whenever he makes reference to your meaning, he's talking about the Talmud, because that was their instructions. Those were their doctrines. Now he says, how do you understand it? And he answered, saying, You shall ahab Yahuwah your power with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your strength and with all your mind, and your neighbor as yourself. And he said to him, You have answered right. Do this, and you shall have life. Now, but he, willing to justify himself, said to Yahush, And who is my neighbor? Now, once again, why is he dragging him into this? Because he wants to see if he really does understand what he is saying, like many say to young. And so he says, and I like this footnote. It says, when you read it, it says, to who is my neighbor? Now he goes on and he tells him or gives him a description. Let's read the writings. And Yahush's answer said, A certain man went down from Jerusalem to Jericho and fell among thieves who stripped him of his clothes and wounded him and departed, leaving him half dead. Half dead. And by chance, there came down a certain Kohen that way. And when he saw him, he crossed on the other side. And likewise a Levite, when he was at the place, came and looked on him and crossed on the other side. But a Samaritan, a certain Samaritan, as he journeyed, came where he was. And when he saw him, he had compassion on him. Now, you know, Samaritans, when it says a good Samaritan, we know the Samaritans, even the woman at the well was a what? A Samaritan. Remember, those are also what? Those are cousins. Now, let's look at this, though. We're not going to focus on that so much. We're going to look at the attitude that's here and what is to be drawn from this and what is not to be drawn from this. It says, but a Samaritan. And here it just says Samaritan. As he journeyed, came where he was, and when he saw him, he had compassion on him. And went to him and nursed his wounds, pouring in oil and wine, and set him on his own animal, and brought him to an inn and took care of him. And on the next Yom, before he departed, he took out 2 silver coins and gave them to the innkeeper, and said to him, Take care of him, and whatever you spend more, when I return again, I will repay you. It says, Now, which of these 3 do you think was neighbor to him that fell among the thieves? Now let's look at this. But I'm gonna look at this footnote as well. This was a very valid, loaded question in first century Judaism, when you had several groups, each with its differences, and the Roman government, so it made it a bit difficult to know who is your neighbor. So You got to be careful. We can't define our way of life through government. Are you following me? There are many stipulations, a whole lot of stuff out here. And so in that time, as it was in that time, so it is in this time. So somebody says, well, who is your neighbor? Then quite naturally, many of us will say the person next door, if this is your bringing. But many of us that understand truth will be like, no, my neighbor is my people, my fellow man, my fellow sister. Those are my neighbors. Not the people I live by, because I may never know who those people are. Are you following me? I live in this community, or I am in this neighborhood, but that is not my neighbor. My real neighbor is my a Cody or my, not my Ben, my Ak. So it's important for us to understand. Now let's look at this parable. The parable is unfortunately extremely misunderstood. The first man, being a normal priest, would not touch him because he thinks the man is dead. And we know that according to the writings. The Torah prohibits him from doing this according to Bamidbar 9 and 7, 19, 11 and 6. Let's go there so that we can back up what is being said. Excuse me. Once again, that is Bamidbar, which is Numbers, chapter 9. And we're going to look at verse 7. We haven't said it, so. And it is so? Okay, come on.
And those men said to him, why we are defiled from the being of a man? Why are we withheld from bringing near the offering of Yahuwah at its appointed time among the children of Yasharal?
And it is so. So he's following what? Instructions. You don't touch a dead body. You don't touch dead bodies. You know, many times people get offended. It's just a shell. That loved one, that person you have is going on. And I'm not being insensitive, but that person is going. We are not supposed to take that, and basically hug them, kiss them, and use the excuse or use the rebuttal and say, but nowadays we XYZ. Are you following me? But it was still given unto us not to bother dead bodies. All right, let's look at chapter 19, verses 11 through 16. He who, verse 11, chapter 19 of Bamidbar, chapter 19, verses 11 through 16. He who touches the dead of any human being is unclean for 7 young men, meaning 7 days. He is to cleanse himself with the water on the 3rd yom, and on the 7th yom he is clean. But if he does not cleanse himself on the 3rd yom, then on the 7th yom he is not clean. Anyone who touches the dead of a human being and does not cleanse himself defiles the Mishkan of Yahuwah. And that being shall be cut off from Yasharal. He is unclean for the water, for uncleanness was not sprinkled on him. His uncleanness is still upon him. This is the Torah. When a man dies in a tent, all who come into the tent and all who are in the tent are unclean for 7 yamim. And every open vessel which has no cover fastened on it is unclean. And we're going to read all the way to verse 16. Anyone in the open field who touches someone slain by a sword or who has died, or a bone of a man or a grave, is unclean for 7 yamim. So he's there following the instructions of the Torah. Are y'all following?
Yes.
Now, the second Levite priest is even more so restricted, not only from touching a dead man, but from going to the graveyards. The problem with the two was not lack of compassion, but they were both so religious that they thought if that man is dead, which he looked like, then they were both going to be defiled for 7 yamim. So their understanding of Torah prevented them affording to even look at the wounded guy who in their mind could be completely dead. Now, once again, let's look at what is being said here. You tell somebody, I'm just going to try, just use this once again as a platform to make an analysis and just put something out here. You tell somebody, hey, you know, that what you are reading is wrong. You need to look and check this out. Well, Yahuwah said that this new covenant is wrong. No man is supposed to die for the sins of Yahshua. Are you hearing me?
Yes.
Just me paraphrasing and just showing some of the stuff I've heard over the years. Well, I'm not going to touch that because that is a lie and it is an abomination and we are not supposed to follow anything but Torah. So people become so religious that they don't even take a look at it to see if what is being said is valid or error. Because they're religious. And this is the point that the Abba is making. Even though you are it, we are the people. Somebody that is not religious will do what you're supposed to do because the only thing they're looking at is a person over there in need. Does that mean he exalted the Samaritan in a specific position? Absolutely not. He's given a parable. And the parable is comparing people that have compassion when we're supposed to have compassion, but at times we are religious instead of being spiritual. We're so religious that we will bypass and walk past stuff instead of really stopping and saying, you know what, I'm not going to just throw this away. I'm going to look at this. Now, I'm not talking about something that's, you know, blatantly error. No, if it's blatantly erroneous and it's error, no, you don't have to take time, waste your time with it. But we're talking about two covenants connected together by blood. And you're going to tell me that the first covenant did not go on to a second covenant. And you're telling me that Yahush is not the Torah made flesh because of something you read. That's a problem. Let me show y'all something real quick. On yesterday, y'all, and I want to do this and we'll go right back to this. I was looking at something I wanted to post and was reading just after coming out of Sukkot. And so I opened it up to chapter 3. And I began to read, and I got to verse 1, 2, and 3. And then I went over and I'm going over to the next chapter that I began to read. Now I want you to listen to what I'm going to read. And I want to show you something. If you're not careful, the enemy will get you if you're not paying attention. Are you following me?
Yes.
All right. Hear the word that Yahuwah has spoken against you, O children of Yasharal, against the entire clan which I brought up from the land of Mitzrayim, saying, you alone have I known of all the clans of the Arabs. Therefore I punish you for all your crookednesses. Would two walk together without having agreed? Now, mind you, he is talking to us as a people because we agreed to walk with him. He said, if you didn't agree to walk with me, I wouldn't walk with you. But you agreed to the terms that were set forth in the very beginning. Okay? Now, I'm going to read a little more and then we'll go on to chapter 5. Does a lion roar in the forest when he has no prey? Does a young lion give forth his voice out of his den unless he has captured? Does a bird fall into a snare on the arids where there is no trap for it? Does a snare spring up from the arids if it has not captured prey? If a ram's horn is blown in a city, do the people not tremble? If there is calamity in a city, shall not Yahuwah have done it? For the master Yahuwah does no matter unless he reveals his secret to his servants, the prophets. A lion has roared. Who is not afraid? The master Yahuwah has spoken. Who would not prophesy? Cry out at the places or the palaces of Ashdod and at the palaces in the land of Mitzrayim and say, gather on the mountains of Shamaron and see the many unrest in her midst and the oppressed ones within her. Verse 10, but they do not know to do what is right, declares Yahuwah, these who store up plunder and loot in their palaces. Now, I'm going to stop right there and I'm going to go to chapter 5. Now, hear this word which I take up against you, this lamentation, house of Yasharal. Y'all follow me?
Yes.
Now, everything else is great. You have to read it, but I want to get to the part that I began to read. I read all of it. I want to show you once again, if we read without the eyes of understanding, we will honestly begin to take certain things we read as the Abba telling us don't do certain things. Take grain taxes from him. You have built houses of hewn stones, but you are not going to dwell in. You have planted pleasant vineyards, but not drink wine from them. I know your transgressions are many and your sins are great, afflicting and accepting bribes and turning aside the poor. Now he's rebuking them for their what? Their callousness. He's rebuking them for their lack of what? Compassion. Now listen what he says. Verse 13, therefore the wise keep and let Yahuwah power or Yahuwah Sabaoth be with you as you have spoken. Hate evil, Ahab great, and set up right ruling in the gate. Might be that Yahuwah Sabaoth shows favor to the remnant of Yosef. Now remember, he's talking concerning Yosef. Therefore Yahuwah Sabaoth says to this, there is a wailing in all open squares, and in all the streets they say, alas, alas, and shall call lamenters to wailing. And in all vineyards there is wailing, for I passed through your midst, said Yahuwah. Woe to you who are longing for the yam of Yahuwah, flees from a lion and a bear shall meet him, or entered his house, rested his hand on the wall, and a serpent shall bite him. Now you look everywhere they turn, he's showing calamity. Is not the yam of Yahuwah darkness and not light? Is it not very dark with no brightness in it? Remember now, he's rebuking them for their what? Callousness and their hardness of heart. I have hated, I have despised your festivals, and I am not pleased with your assemblies. Why? Y'all follow where I'm going with this?
Yes.
Why is he not pleased with their assemblies and their festivals or their feasts? This out of just to be saying don't do it. He is giving them a rundown of why he despises their feasts and their gatherings or their assemblies. Though you offer me burnt offerings and your grain offerings, I do not accept them, nor do I look on your fattened shalom offerings. Take away from me the noise of your songs, for I do not hear the sound of your stringed instruments. And he's telling them what needs to be done in verse 24. 25. You brought me slaughterings and meal offerings in the wilderness for 40 years, house of Yasharal. But you took up Succoth, your sovereign, and Kiyan, your idols, your astral mighty ones, which you made for yourselves. Therefore I send you into exile beyond Damascus, said Yahuwah Sabaoth. His name is his name. Now, if you just open that up, especially in the time we're in, he's telling us not to keep the feast.
Right.
He's speaking, telling us that is not what he is saying. He is rebuking them for their hardness of heart. And yes, he's telling them at that time, I despise your feast. Because look at how you do things. You want to give me this, but then you want to exert taxes on your fellow man, but you want to give me all this. Now watch this, whom you've never seen, but you see them every year, and you want to make life for them hard. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
Interpretation is important. That's why I wanted to show that.
Okay.
Now, let's go back to Luca. Excuse me. Chapter 10 and looking at verse 25 all the way to 37. Are you hearing me? So because of their interpretation of the writings, that compassion had to be thrown out of the window. That their religion was more important than being compassionate. They never even went to examine the body to see whether he was dead or alive. This is a thing for us as a people to remember and really reflect upon this. Because so many times we forget where we've come from. We forget how we were treated. That has to play here. Not just here, but here as well. Why is that important? Because if it is not important, we will bypass people trying to be religious and not realize somebody that's not even us will do what we are supposed to do. And guess what happens? Then they will get the reward and the credit for it, and we will be labeled something else.
Right.
Are y'all hearing me?
Yes.
Now, this man fell among thieves. Who do you think this man was? 9 times out of 10, he was Israel. No, y'all hear me?
Yes.
He was Israel. And so we should never have to have somebody else, when we are walking in truth and supposed to be able to do these things, let somebody else come and do it and get the credit for it. What he is sharing with him and showing him is that you know what you're supposed to do. Now, don't let somebody else that's not of you go and do what you're supposed to do. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
It's important that we understand that. Because when we miss that concept, you know what happens? Now we say, well, that's not my responsibility. That's the government. Now I'm talking about when you could do it. Now he could do it. He was able to do this. Even if they just would have went by and showed some compassion, just to check and see if he was alive, they didn't even do that.
Right.
So you have to understand, once again, the parable that is being shared here is to get him to understand. If religion is your key, is the only thing you see in this world, you are missing.
Right. Right.
Because it's not about being religious, it is about being spiritual, and it's about following the instructions of the hour. Are y'all following me?
Yes.
Very important. I know it's not popular, people don't want to hear, because it goes against what they believe. You know, everybody got to get their own. Everybody got to do. You know, everybody got to get out there and do, make that grind. Everybody got to do. And then sometimes when people do stuff, you have to question their motive. Why are you doing what you're doing?
Right.
And then if you stop, why did you stop? What was it that made you abruptly cut off and stop doing what you were doing? Because your motive wasn't right.
Right.
That's the truth. It's an ugly truth, but it's the truth. And people don't want to be confronted with these things. Why? Because the number one thing that helps us is this writing here. Remember when it said in Yaakov, which is James, I believe it is in chapter 1 or chapter 2, where he says, looking into the perfect law of liberty, or looking into the mirror and walking away and forgetting what manner of man you are.
Mm-hmm.
When you look into the Torah and you see the things, the flaws, and you see the error, and you walk away because you feel like, I ain't got to do that, I'm not going to do it. You've just forgotten what type of person you were, even after the Torah revealed to you who you were.
Right.
We only look at the Torah as revealing to us, we being the set apart people. But now let me tell you something else. A mirror just does not show the great things. It shows the flaws. It shows everything.
Right.
So the Torah shows us everything that's right and everything that's wrong.
Right.
That's why it's important that we always keep it before us, like we look in the mirror. Some of us spend hours in the mirror. We ought to spend hours in the Torah, because that's the only way we're going to know who we are.
That's right.
And so this is what Yahushua was revealing to him about the parable, because he was a scholar of the Torah. He wasn't ignorant. But see, he had to put something there for him to identify with, because 9 times out of 10, he was one of the ones who would have went past him, because he would have allowed that what has been said. And understand, these things are valid and we don't negate them at all. But they never even went to go see if the man was dead. How would they know not to touch the body unless they went and looked at it and examined it? Not with your hands, but with your eyes. But they had taken in his head. Why? Because he in a bad way. He in a real bad way. So we just don't say he dead. And he wasn't dead. So it's important that we remember these things. And it is so. And it is so. All right. Let us look at knowing the danger. Yahushua goes up. All right. Now, where he confronts the religious leaders. Now, we're going to look at Yehukanan chapter 8, verses 12 through 59. It's long, but we're going to get through it. Mm-hmm. And I want to show y'all something too. We'll bring out something that this is why many times our people are misled and misconstrued. Let's read 5.
You judge after the flesh, I judge no man. And yet if I judge, my judgment is true, for I am not alone. But I am the one that sent me. It is also written in your Torah that the testimony of 2 men is true.
Did you read it from Yehukanan 8, verse 12? Let's go to Yehukanan. Yeah. Yehukanan. Okay. Chapter 8, verse 12.
Then spoke Yahushua again to them, saying, I am the light of the world. He that follows me shall not walk in darkness, but shall have the light of life. The Pharisees therefore said to him, You bear record of yourself, your record is not true. Yahushua answered and said to them, Though I bear record of myself, yet my record is true, for I know where I came and where I go, but you cannot tell where I come and where I go. You judge after the flesh, I judge no man. And yet, if I judge, my judgment is true, for I am not alone, but I and the Abba that sent me, and it is so.
And it is so. You read 5 verses?
Yes.
Okay. All right, let's continue reading.
Verse 17.
Mm-hmm.
In your Torah also it has been written that the witness of 2 men is true. I am one who witnesses concerning myself, and the Abba who sent me witnesses concerning me. Therefore they said to him, Where is your Abba? Yahush answered, You know neither me nor my Abba. If you knew me, you would have known my Abba also. These words Yahush spoke during teaching in the synagogue place, and no one laid hands on him because his hour had not yet come. Therefore Yahush says to them again, I am going away, and you shall seek me, and you shall die in your sin. Where I go, you are unable to come.
And it is so. All right.
Then the Yahudim said, Shall he kill himself because he says, Where I go, you are unable to come? And he said to them, You are from below, I am from above. You are of this world, I am not of this world. Therefore I said to you, that you shall die in your sins. For if you do not believe that I am he, you shall die in your sins. Then they said to him, Who are you? And Yahush said to them, Altogether that which I even say to you. I have much to say and to judge concerning you. But he who sent me is true. And what I heard from him, these words I speak to you, to the world. They did not know that he spoke to them of the Father, or of the Abba. And it is.
And it is so. All right.
So Yahush said, When you have lifted up the Son of Man, then you will know that I am the one I claim to be, and that I do nothing on my own, but speak just what the Abba. The one who sent me is with me. He has not left me alone, for I always do what pleases him. Even as he spoke, many put their belief in him. To the Yehudim who had believed him, Yahush said, If you hold to my teaching, you are really my disciples. Then you will know the truth, and the truth will make you free. They answered him, We are Abraham's descendants, and have never been slaves of anyone. How can you say that we shall be set free? And it is so.
So, all right. Come on. Give your verse too, so people will know where you're at.
Verse 33. We are descendants of Abraham, they answered him, and we have never been enslaved to anyone. How can you say you will become free? Yahushua responded, I assure you, everyone who commits sin is a slave of sin. A slave does not remain in the household forever, but a son does remain forever. Therefore, if the Son sets you free, you will be from my Abba. Therefore, you do what you have heard from your Abba. Our Abba Abraham, they replied. If you were Abraham's children, Yahush told them, you would do what Abraham did. But now you are trying to kill me, a man who has told you the truth that I heard from Yahuwah. Abraham did not do this. You're doing what your Abba does.